Whether it's anime, manga, visual novels, or any other medium, there are always those particular character types and plot devices that you see very frequently. There comes a point, however, where these devices end up becoming cliché and stereotypical due to its overused nature. Hi, my name is August, and today I'm going to talk about 5 more tropes I hate in visual novels, and why I don't like these particular tropes. Now, if you're familiar with Japanese media in general, chances are you've seen this many times before. It's a trope that'll make you sigh in disappointment or even become angry if you instantly see this type of scene. Presenting number 5, accidental perverted moments. We're talking about accidentally opening the door while the girl is changing, accidentally falling and seeing underneath the girl's skirt, accidentally grabbing onto the girl unexpectedly, which then results in the very predictable reaction of the heroine blows up in an outrage. Now, we can target the easy reasons why anyone would detest these scenes. Fan service for the sake of eye candy fan service, lacking originality from being overdone, and sexual harassment being played off as a throwaway joke. But I'm gonna go a step further. Perverted moments that forces unnecessary and unnatural character interaction. The reasons I mentioned before are valid reasons, yes, but the specific reason why I particularly don't like these scenes is because they can force uncharacteristic behaviors or interrupt the story's flow. They appear as these cheeky jokes, but when carelessly used can lead to damaging the reader's image of the character's personality. Imagine a serious heroine known for their no-nonsense attitude and assertive personality, and then one of these scenes comes along, and the next thing you know, this is the typical case for most classic tsunderes. For example, in Hello Lady, the heroines are the top role models for their prestigious school, both in superpower ability and noble grace. But that image gets shattered when our self-proclaimed boob connoisseur main character loudly pursues their bodies. And in a visual novel where the main premise is actually about an Avenger seeking to take revenge for the massacre of his family, these scenes feel jarring in comparison. Sure, there are moments where the story needs to take a break from being too serious, but I feel having it done this way is extremely abrupt and inappropriate. Out of all the possible scenarios you can choose to break the tension and transition, I believe this is one of the worst executed ideas. These accidental perverted moments are more commonplace in romance comedy works, and arguably more quote-unquote tolerable. Koikari Love for Hire, a comedy-heavy visual novel where 5 girls basically hire our main character to be their fake boyfriend, escort, big brother, and friend for hire, has these moments to play up that fake love turning into actual love angle, a case where comedy drives its plot's development. Sugar Style utilizes its wish fulfillment premise of a male main character living in an all-female university dorm to drive the absurd craziness and its fast-paced humor, a case where the comedy is the focal point. Or Cafe Stella and the Reaper's Butterflies, where all of their scenes are meant to show off the heroine's charms. Clear fan service, essentially, a case where cute girls is the focal point. But that doesn't mean we can't be better at writing more natural character interactions. I find it more enjoyable when the comedy is developed around the unique traits and personality of characters, and when tonally appropriate, can help create better, meaningful storytelling. In general, I don't like perverted moments, simply because they feel like one-off jokes with no real added value, which leads me into my next trope I highly dislike. Presenting number 4, characters centered around very specific jokes or gimmicks. These are characters where their entire personalities are often known for that one specific quirk or archetype, most of which serve to be an easy base for all jokes related to that gimmick. Foreigner in Japan, here's some broken English and wacky acts to remind you they aren't from Japan. Pitiful best friend character who can't get a girlfriend? Sure, keep on putting yourself down with that self-deprecating humor, because that's clearly gonna help. Older alcoholic woman who can't get married? I already covered that in my previous tropes video. These type of characters are usually in a supporting role. They don't hog up the spotlight, and most often, they are specifically designed for those one-off jokes. Although experiencing it still doesn't make it any better. My problem is that when it becomes the sole defining characteristic in a major character. Chinatsu and Konatsu from Koikari Love for Hire are 2 very extreme examples. In this rom-com visual novel, these twins would really love to have an older brother, so they pay money to hire the main character as a rental one. They constantly chase after his affections in many absurd situations, and out of these 2 big brother obsessed girls, Konatsu is by far the worst one. Every single line that comes out of her mouth is a sexual innuendo or an unrestrained desire to bone her rental older brother. Not only is this repulsive to the people who aren't a big fan of the brother-sister dynamic, or just like in general, but from a character standpoint, there's no real quality to her. Sure, these personality traits might be quirky enough to remember the character by. The problem is that these very specific jokes can get old very quickly, and even more so if there's no story relevance or innovative creative variety to them. Characters should attempt to feel like actual people, not walking memes. And now let's talk about something that sounds absurdly ridiculous and yet be completely normal in anime. Presenting number 3, characters appearing seemingly invincible after being terribly beat up. It's the classic action protagonist trope at the story's climax. In the ultimate fight against the villain, even when the hero is battered and bruised, the hero will stand back up to fight. Now, I don't outright hate this. The action can feel awesome, and when it's combined with real emotional weight, can make it feel even more satisfying when the heroes are victorious in the end. I just have an odd suspicion when the protagonist clearly should have died multiple times over, and yet still manages to fight with even more strength than before somehow. I can definitely turn off my brain for the sake of enjoyment, the rule of cool and all, but there's always going to be that underlying feeling of doubt whenever these events happen, which is then brought to my mind immediately whenever something feels instinctively very wrong. This is entirely personal taste, but I would like my fight scenes to always retain a scope of believability. Can they actually really get back up again? They may still be in the ring, running off of pure adrenaline and sheer guts, but that's when the story slowly starts to lose me in the fight's realism. Even more so when they unlock some hidden ability or use some secret thingamajig. Hello Lady's main character finally achieves his goal of taking down the main antagonist, but suffers major life-threatening wounds in the process. And yet, moments later, he's somehow able to face off against what is basically the extra final boss of the visual novel. Masamune's pilot and their mech in Full Metal Demon Muramasa, I suspect, runs purely off of intense rage and self-righteous justice, enough to unlock just a couple of extra power-ups. And the one-on-one duel on the ship in the Eden of Grisaya has Kazumi Yuji down for the count, but he's able to pick himself back up and deliver the final blow through the power of drugs. At the core of my issue, it all revolves around the question of, can these scenes work given the story's defined set rules and world building, even with a bit of action tomfoolery? Most of the tropes I've mentioned are story related, which can apply visual novel or not, but this next one is specifically for the visual novel medium. Presenting number 2, choice decisions that lead to immediate bad endings. Traditionally, most visual novels give you choices that will affect the events of the story, the most drastic ones affecting the type of ending you will get. Visual novels, in a way, are pick your own adventure stories, where while the premise remains the same, you have the freedom to choose where the story will go. There are choices that split the story into different directions, there are choices that offer different flavor text, and then there are those choices that affect story progression. Choosing the right choices will lead to a good ending, while choosing the wrong choices will land you in a bad ending. What I'm referring to specifically are those that upon choosing them immediately give you a bad ending. So what gets on my nerves the most is when this happens from the most trivial of choice decisions. I'm referring to the choices that are literally a coin flip on whether or not you get a bad ending. Imagine you're at a pivotal moment in the fight and the visual novel suddenly gives you two choices, go left or go right. You go left, the main character dies, instant bad end. I absolutely hate this. What's worse is that the visual novel continues to keep doing this repeatedly. Full Metal Demon Muramasa's Nemesis route has a lot of choices in it. There are scenes in which the main character Kageyaki is deeply engaged in a fight, and then all of a sudden, the story gives you a choice to decide where Kageyaki should evade. There's barely any concrete context on which way is obvious, so you're just left to seemingly pick randomly. Choose the wrong option and he dies instantly. You restart back from the menu and you're forced to reread if you didn't save at that decision. This is an objective waste of my time. Sure, it might be a cheeky move by the writers to make sure that the readers are paying attention, and I'm okay with very obvious bad endings being used in a comedic fashion. Miyako's bad endings in Machikoi and Ivanical's joke bad endings are amusing to read. However, it does come at the cost of breaking the reader's immersion and flow of the story. Yes, my actions do affect the course of the story, but in those cases, why am I being punished for an arbitrary decision when it might not even matter in the grand scheme of things? And yet, this isn't the trope that angers me the most. Ranking at number 1, having deep emotional moments and then immediately transitioning into a comic relief moment. Imagine the serious scene as it slowly builds up tension, culminating in a dramatic turning point for the characters, and then the scene immediately pivots to a dumb joke. I hate this so much. Not only does it take the potential energy for emotion and throws it out the window, the idea that we may be subjected to a terrible one-off joke is infuriating. The joke might not even land, and we're left with a bitter aftertaste. And sometimes, these jokes are even the tropes I mentioned before, a perverted moment or the classic joke catchphrase. Romantic comedy visual novels that heavily emphasize its comedy are the most susceptible. It always feels like they have to always keep the jokes coming, one after another, to keep the audience engaged. Not everything needs to be a joke. In fact, the scenes where the visual novel decides to take a short breather are the ones that stand out. Jokes can be entertaining and hilarious, but what I will always remember are the most dramatic, emotionally pulling moments. Of course, you don't want to always see the story in a depressing tone either, because at some point, it'll just all feel on the same level emotionally, and it weakens the impact of future dramatic scenes. Balance is important as well as timing. Even when the whole title is comedy focused, those sentimental moments from the characters serve to be much more powerful because of that contrast. Machikoi spends a lot of time showing the cast all hanging out and joking around, but when it's time to get serious, the cast is ready to fight for their friends. Kinkoi Golden Love Riche is largely a fun, wholesome romantic comedy, but its final true route stands apart from any other route prior, delivering on an unexpected drama-heavy heroine route. And Studio Key in general is the best at this balance and timing, where for the first few hours you're hanging out playing table tennis or baseball, and in the last few hours will have you crying your heart out. Everyone has moments where they can have fun and laugh out loud, but they also have time to get personal with themselves or others. These are the moments you want to show, to make the readers relate to these characters. And that was 5 more tropes I dislike in visual novels. If you want to hear more tropes I utterly despise, check out this video if you haven't seen it already. Big thanks to my supporters on Patreon for helping support the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. That said, if you want to see more behind the scenes content and exclusive videos, check out my Patreon for more details. I'll see you all on the next video.